welcome to wherever you are in the world. My name is Andrew Thake. I am from Mines and Money, and welcome you to this week's Mines and Money 5 at 5 show. This week our sponsors are Sierra Madre Gold and Silver, Wallbridge Mining and Jakarta Resources, and is brought to you in association with our media partners, Resource Global Network. As I mentioned, I'm Andrew Thake and I'm from Mines and Money. For those of you who don't know, we started the first 5 at 5, 5 guests at 5 p.m. back in April of 2020. And it was intended as a stopgap show, which would bring the industry together whilst we were dealing with lockdown, COVID-19. 2 years on, we're now at episode 105. Just a few admin announcements before we start. Please help us have your video switched on. To ask a question, you can either submit them in the chat function. I've just put a couple of comments in the chat function at the bottom of the screen, or you can wave your hands, I can unmute you, and you can ask your question live. We'll also be having some polling questions throughout the webinar where you can vote. For today's show, we've got a great lineup of guests. They are Greg Liller, Chief Operating Officer and Executive Chairman of Sierra Madre Gold and Silver, Marz, Chief Executive Officer and President of Wallbridge Mining, Adam Melnik, Chief Executive Officer of Zacapa Resources, and Karl Mccurdy, who's a partner at Rock Elm Capital. A warm welcome to you. Perhaps I can start off by going to our first polling question. Should be coming up now. So hopefully it's coming up the screen now, and hopefully everyone will be able to see it, so they can all go. All of you can go and vote. And the question should actually say, is the mining industry investing enough in exploration? And you've got 3 answers there: yes, no, or unsure. Whilst you are voting, I'd like to introduce Karl Mccurdy. Karl, for those of you who haven't met him before, he has over 35 years of geologic and project development experience, combined with a background in executive management, finance, and technical advisory. Karl was the CEO of Minerals Industry Advisor Bear Dolbear, served as head of global mining and metals for Standard Chartered Bank and Citigroup. He's completed over 200 transactions valued at over 100 billion. He's visited hundreds of mines and downstream operations. And as a geologist, he discovered and developed the Pueblo Viejo gold mine in the Dominican Republic. So, Karl, welcome to the show. You're a geologist by training. Is the mining industry investing enough in exploration?
Well, yes, good day, Andrew, and thanks for that question. A really good one. I think I would, answer that question with, with a no answer. I mean, in today's markets, obviously, there's a lot of concern being expressed about, adequacy of supply. With supply chains disrupted by a whole host of difficult situations, that are well beyond the market's ability to manage. Yes, certainly exploration is a key ingredient to sustaining, the mineral production that's required to meet demand. And today we have demand growing, as a result of, the increase in growth in economic activity, as well as, new segments of growth, brought on upon us by technological change and, change in the markets, such as, when we look at what's required to fuel, the economy's transition to, lower carbon impact. And exploration is I believe, an underfunded activity, and represents a great opportunity, given some of the factors I've mentioned.
And in terms of that underfunding, to what extent has that been exacerbated by, I assume you're referring to, recent events in Ukraine?
Well, that's a really good question. I think that helps people refocus on jurisdictions which the markets view as being more stable and less impacted by geopolitical uncertainty, which is being brought about by the war and Russia's aggression and the uncertainty tied around that, but also as we look out into that changing environment, we see concerns growing about China's aspirations and objectives internationally, and whether or not they might result in conflict somehow, catalyzed by the war that Russia has brought upon the Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. What is your kind of like approach at your company with regards to, I guess, what you might term as peripheral jurisdictions?
Well, I think as a team at Rock Elm, we have great experience working in many jurisdictions throughout our careers. But if we fast forward to where we are today and focus on our attributable track record, it's largely driven by the limited partners that we work with, and their focus is pretty tight around jurisdictions which they believe represent low geopolitical risk, low currency risk, and a number of other factors. So we find that some of the larger alternative capital pools, which are becoming more and more important in funding exploration and mine development, to be very sensitive to geopolitical risks and concerns. And when we look at even well-established countries, for example, like Peru, and their rising role in the copper universe. And today, there was a headline, I believe, suggesting that as much as 20% of their copper production is on hold due to local community issues and factors. So there's a lot of stakeholder unrest and concern, which are really disrupting that flow of capital into this really capital intensive sector that we're all involved in.
Mm-hmm. And you kind of like referred to, obviously, sort of like you sort of like touched on issues relating to sustainability and ESG there. Again, you've been in the industry for sort of like 35 years. In your opinion, is the industry doing enough in this sort of space? Because certainly when I look at your sort of like your tweets and your articles, you're certainly very passionate about the sustainable growth of the mining industry.
Yes, I think the industry has come a long ways, and it's always been battling reputational issues, tied to the impact and the footprint that a mining operation can bring upon a community. But I would say throughout my career, I've seen a huge amount of change. Is there more distance to cover? Well, the answer is yes, because I think while important steps are made to cultivate the change and respond to more sustainable approach to within the extractive industries, then the expectations of all the stakeholders involved, they evolve as well alongside, and they tend to increase. So I think the real answer is these ESG represents important objectives, and the understanding of these goalposts are changing, and the goalposts are constantly being pushed further out in front of us. So I think that is the important realization, is that this this topic is one that's very strategic, for explorationists and mine developers, and those that are in production as well.
Just getting the polling up. I see that the most popular answer was no, but just because it's interesting coming to the mining companies who will be hearing more from in a bit. Going to Adam Melnik of Zacapa first. How would you have voted in the poll?
Oh, thank you very much for hosting here today, Andrew, and the Mines and Money team. From my perspective, the exploration industry is hugely underinvested, and there's been a lack of conviction from the majors, particularly to greenfields opportunities. That's where there's a huge opportunity for firms like ourselves. I think it's a perfect time as the major diversified companies and major gold producers around the world are paying record dividends, doing record share buybacks, and are forecast to have the strongest margins they've had in the better part of a decade here. Their war chests are building, and it's certainly going to be an interesting time for new companies like ourselves to have greenfields, grassroots discoveries, and partner with the majors as their balance sheets are in the best position they've been in a long time. So really exciting, Andrew, really exciting time. And I agree with the poll outcome. No, we're not investing enough in this space.
Yeah. Marz from Wallbridge, how would you have voted?
Oh, I think just adding to what Adam had mentioned in Karr and also the poll, it's also important to add that most of these larger gold companies are producing millions of ounces per year and depleting the resources and reserves, yet they're not really adding the same amounts. So it also creates that need and the demand for being able to, and obviously exploration has always been sort of in the lowest part of the priority with these major companies. So it certainly is good for the exploration companies that are advancing their projects to a certain stage where it becomes attractive, particularly in our case, for example, where you have a district scale land package with 3 large gold systems already identified, 2 of them by us. And so certainly it creates that kind of a momentum.
Mm-hmm. And Greg Liller from Sierra Madre Gold and Silver, how would you have voted?
Well, in classical economic terms, mining is it's a wasting asset. Every day you're in production is a day closer to being out of it. So from that aspect, no, it's not receiving nearly the investment that it should be. And you look at, with a lot of this green energy demand coming online, it's really underinvested. I don't know where the metals are going to come from.
Yeah.
By the same token, though, in my 40 some odd years of experience, I have to look at the way some of the exploration money's been spent, and I just kind of shake my head going, what were you thinking of? So it's a two-edged sword.
Well, we hope that some of the exploration, financing and investment mistakes of the past have been sort of learned. But certainly, I think I'm right in saying that Mark Kudafani, who stepped down from Anglo American this week, I'm sure he has that slide where he says that 38% of the world's economy, of the world's economic GDP is derived from mining. And, if you do believe in sort of climate change, decarbonisation and green economies, I think most of us do, that, if anything, actually strengthens the needs for metals, because we need the metals to go and drive forward the future. So certainly, let's hope we do see more exploration and, more importantly, more investment in exploration, which neatly leads me on to our first mining update. So I'm going to stay with Greg and ask Greg to go and share his slides. Just as a brief introduction, why he's getting his slides up on the screen. Greg Liller is Chief Operating Officer and Executive Chairman of Sierra Madre Gold and Silver. His team has over 100 years of combined mining experience in Mexico with a strong capital markets experience. Greg, would you like to give us a bit of a overview of Sierra Madre Gold and Silver?
Sure. As you said, we're focused in Mexico. Right now, we have 2 projects. Both are located in the state of Nayarit. Tepic is in the southern portion, that's a silver dominant, silver gold deposit, and La Tigra is our newest acquisition, and it's a gold dominant system up there. As you said, we've got a lot of experience. We've put together a company whose objective is to build mines. We want to break into the mid-tier silver production class, hopefully within the next 3 or so years, and rack up a good resource base in excess of 50, 60 million ounces of silver equivalent. I've been at this a long time, so one of the first things I look at is infrastructure. Tepic is excellent in those terms. It had a previous operator that drilled over 31,000 meters with core drilling, mostly focused here in the central area. They never did establish a decent base map. They had no elevational control. Again, this is one of those things I referred to when I was saying, what was it you were thinking of? But that's all worked to our advantage. I kind of look for cases like this. The central area, the initial work that they had done showed only about 2.5 kilometers worth of mineralized structures. Our detailed mapping ended up expanding that to well over 12 kilometers. So just the whole size of the project has grown since we've taken it over. We've done 2 drilling programs, one an RC program to validate the previous core drilling. There were some recovery issues on that. That was successful. And we've now undertaken a phase 2 core drilling program. Very pleased with the results on that. One of the more interesting holes was hole 4. The old operator had a fault running through here. Again, a very complex view of the project, if you will. I didn't see it that way. And hole 4 returned a nice 4.6 meters, and just shy of a quarter kilo of silver. So I'm quite pleased with the results of this. So far, all our holes have hit, which is pretty good. Batting average, I think. We've been using trenching to guide our work here. The eastern portion of the project had received, again, no work. Why, I don't know. As soon as we started doing our mapping and sampling program over there, we came across the Taúna structures, which have some old Spanish colonial workings on them. They've returned some nice grades up to over 600 grams of silver equivalent. We've done some trenching, and we've just completed a rehabbing the road and pad building, so we'll be drilling that shortly. Our northern area, again, had received very little work. A lot of this is basalt cover, but there are some areas where erosion's exposed the underlying volcanic host rock, and we've got a couple targets there. The Estasis 2 target here, we're awaiting our drill hole results on that now, but it's looking very, very hopeful. Several historic mineral resources have been done on this project. The most recent one was a little over 10 million ounces silver equivalent. Depends on the cutoff and minimum thickness you want to use. Another one using the same data to come up with about 18. But this is historic, and as soon as our drilling program's finished, we'll be updating this. Metallurgy is very important. I always start looking at that very early on in a project. If you can't get the metal out, you're wasting your money. And it's surprising the number of projects that have a lot invested in them before somebody bothers to see if you can get it out. Historic test work here was quite encouraging. I kind of focus on this flotation followed by cyanide leaching. If we can achieve this 90% silver recovery in operations, then it really is a game changer on this project because it is silver dominant.
In terms of the sort of like project, just like looking at the slides, where does you think the greatest upside lies in the project, Greg? Is it in the gold or is it?
It's silver dominant, so it's economically, silver is the most important one for this project.
Okay.
Our La Tigra project now is just the reverse. Gold is more dominant in this system. This was a project I've had my eye on for well over a decade, probably 15 years. It is a Grupo Mexico property. It took a while to put together a deal with Grupo, but they apparently have a lot of confidence in us. They're very happy with what we've been doing here so far. So the project was a historic high-grade gold mine. Currently, there's actually a lot of Gambesinos, artisanal miners working in the area. Again, no modern exploration work, no base topo map. That was the first thing we did. And from that, then we started a district-wide mapping and sampling program. And our work thus far has shown that there's more than just this one El Tigre vein structure there. We've got at least 4 of them stacked on top of each other. We've started drilling there now. I think we're on our 3rd hole. And we're basically pushing the drilling equipment to drill as deep as they can. And we're cutting these multiple structures with the drill holes. In fact, we're replacing one of the rigs with a larger capacity one. So I hope to have assays for maiden drill results on this program very shortly in hand, but very happy with the progress we've been making here.
Okay, I'm just going to bring in, if it's okay with you, it's quite interesting bringing in Karl from Rockhelm, who we obviously heard from earlier. Karl, I'm just interested, I mean, do you currently have investments in Mexico? And I guess the obvious follow-up question is, do you have any questions for Greg?
Yeah, I'm curious, Greg, you know, you mentioned your overall thesis and you know, at what point do you begin to change your focus more on you know, defining the production potential of these targets that you know, that you're defining? You know, when do you see you know, a transition to, you know, just more of the resource development and improving the confidence level and beginning to you know, look at you know, the economic you know, potential of you know, of these targets you've defined?
As soon as our drilling program's completed, we'll go out, we'll get our resource estimation, and then probably immediately go into a PEA. Our concept right now is to, we've got these 2 projects in Nayarit. We're looking at other ones. And what we plan on doing is building a central processing facility and then trucking the ores in from these. It's kind of the hub and spoke idea.
Sure.
I've used that at other projects, not quite on as large a scale, but where we had multiple mines that we developed feeding one processing facility. I should add, I've been fortunate. I've had 7 of my projects I played a key role in, I call them my babies, have gone to production. And while I am an explorationist at heart, I've also run mines. So I know what it takes to do a mine properly, a profitable mine. And this kind of also gets back to that initial question about exploration investment dollars. It's been my experience that most mines just do not do the proper development that they need to do, a lot of them, in order to keep their production up. When I was involved with Mexico, when we bought El Cubo, That's a prime example. Development was just not there. We immediately launched a good development program and got production up from 2,000 gold equivalent ounces a month to 7,000 in 2 years. Genco was another situation where when I took over as president of that, there were no reserves developed, and we had a 300 ton a day mill we had to feed. And so, yeah, I spent the next several years pushing hard on getting that development caught up. But you've got to do these things right from the very beginning. It's always hard to catch up.
Yeah.
But if you do it right from the beginning, it's easy.
Yeah. So does that kind of like link back to your like opening comment that what you really like about this project is you've got a good infrastructure that's already in sort of like place, and that's, you think, was going to be, obviously there's other like good things about the project. There's great project, you know, there's kind of great management, there's great assay results, promising sort of like drilling results going on, but having a good infrastructure in place to you is an absolute like key thing and a key cornerstone for success here.
Yeah, with what we want to do, like I said, we want to truck to a central processing facility. Tepique's only 3 kilometers off of a paved road. La Tigre is about 8 kilometers off of a paved road. So that'll really keep our trucking costs down. But it's all, I've done projects up in the middle of the Sierra Madres where it took you a whole day just to get into it. And they're a hell of a lot tougher and a lot more expensive to do anything at than things that have reasonable infrastructure.
There's this quick question from Shane in the audience, from Shane Gorel. He's just asked, is there a mill nearby?
Yes, we're looking at several opportunities along those lines.
Okay,
so.
Excellent. Well, look, but thank you very much for that. And we're definitely sort of like very interested as to how the Sierra Madre Gold, obviously how the Sierra Madre Gold and Silver project sort of like develops, and definitely wish you all the best. I think we're just going to like run out sort of like time. So if I can ask you to go and take the slides down, and we can obviously move on to the next presentation. And hopefully we can go and come back to you a little bit like later on in the show, Greg. Our next presenter is Wallbridge Mining Company, which is an advanced exploration development company driven by a targeted approach. I'm just going to ask Marz, who's Chief Executive Officer and President, to go and share his slides. Just while slides are coming up on the screen, very brief background: professional mining engineer, over 30 years of progressive experience in mining operations and project management. Marz, can you tell us a little bit about Wallbridge?
Sure, thanks. I'll be making some forward-looking statements, so I encourage everybody to read that on our website. It's not very common when you have a company with projects that have a district-scale land package in a safe jurisdiction, access to infrastructure, and the supportive communities. Wallbridge today has been focusing on the D2 Phenolon gold trend. This is a large land package, roughly about 900 square kilometers, about 97 kilometers stretch of the land, right from the Ontario border to the east, with 3 large gold systems already identified. You've got the, you've got the D2 Lake Mine, and then the Phenolon gold, as well as the Martiniere gold that we've so far identified on this belt. But more importantly, this is this distance roughly between Val-d'Or and Rouyn-Noranda, except for it doesn't have the 100 years of exploration and mining. It doesn't have the 100 years of research. It, in the past, perhaps prospectors were able to explore in those areas in the southern Abitibi. But in this northern belt, there's 25 to 30 meters of glacial till. And really it was till the late 90s that the people who were looking for VMS type deposits, because this is really a VMS country from Metallurgy and the Sal Bay mine, that they encountered gold mineralization. And as a result, it does give you the challenge, but it certainly gives you a lot of opportunities. And so far, we've been able to identify at least the 2 large gold systems. Today, we are sitting at Phenolon gold with, and as well as Martiniere, with a total of close to about 4.4 million ounces. Majority of that in the indicated category, roughly about 60%, about 2.7 million ounces in the indicated, and about 1.7 million ounces in the inferred category, and with a lot of growth potential. You've got power line that's less than 20 kilometers to the property, and road infrastructure, as well as supportive communities. We talked about ESG and how important that is. Most mining companies and exploration companies have been doing the right things, but we've not really touted about it and put it in a report. So we in fact just launched our inaugural sustainability report that I encourage everybody to read that on our website. Of important note is the fact that ever since we got into Quebec and purchased the Phenolon property in 2016, we decided to introduce ourselves to the neighbors. And our neighbors are the communities as well as the First Nation communities. And we basically sat down, told them what we're trying to do in here, and provided them initially with a report every month that told them what we did the month prior and what we're going to do the next month. And that actually has turned into a partnership that we have weekly meetings with them. In fact, close to about 30% of our workforce today is made up of the First Nation community members. And we've supported the communities. We've actually supported a $1.5 million commitment to a road improvement that really allows the economic development in those areas. And one of our main focuses is to actually source things locally. In terms of, I don't want to go into the technical side of things, except for, Phenolon and Martiniere certainly have a lot of growth potential. And we believe that not only do we have a tier 1 asset at Phenolon, we believe that we can probably add to the Martiniere deposit, which today sits roughly about 800,000 ounces, that would be able to, in the next program that we've identified, be able to bring that to a much higher content in terms of resources. Shareholding, Eric Sprott owns about 18.5%. Kirkland Lake Gold, which is now a subsidiary of Agnico, roughly about 9.8%. And in terms of cash, we today, at the end of the third quarter, we're sitting roughly about $50 million of cash, and we expect the refundable tax credit from the Quebec government, which, by the way, just as an added advantage, in Quebec exploration, for every dollar that you spend, you get 38.5 cents back. So certainly, as long as they're not flow-through expenditures. We expect the 2020 refundable tax credit in the next couple of weeks, which is roughly about $10 million. Before the end of the year, we expect our 2021 tax credit, refundable tax credit, which adds an additional $20 million. So we certainly have a fully funded program this year. We have a very aggressive exploration program this year. It's roughly about $70 million. And in fact, most of that is in the exploration at surface between Phenolon and Martiniere. And about 10% of our total exploration would be dedicated to regional exploration, trying to discover other deposits on this land package. We also know that advancing the project, you can't just come up with the resource and then decide that doing the environmental baseline studies and all the required studies for a subsequent economics. So therefore, we've already initiated our environmental baseline study since the discovery of the Area 51 and Tabasco zone in 2019, and we continue to do that. We're also doing some geotechnical work as well as geochemical and metallurgical work. We've already done some metallurgical work on the new discoveries. We did a bulk sample on the Gablo zones, roughly about 30,000 tons of 18.5 grams a ton in 2018 and 2019, with recoveries of in excess of 98% recovery. In the new discoveries of Tabasco and Cayenne zones, we in fact did metallurgical studies, and we announced last year that both Area 51 and the Tabasco zone have recoveries in excess of 97 to 98%, with the gravity recoveries of close to about 80%. So it really is a free gold type of typically in the Area 51 as well as Tabasco zones, you see the visible gold in just about every hole, as well as the associated with chalcopyrite and pyrrhotite and arsenopyrite, which that the sulfides are certainly responsible for the deposition of gold as well. Maybe just now that I have a bit of a time in terms of, this is the, on the right-hand side of this slide, you can see the pit shell that was in our mineral resource estimate. And you can see there's a lot of mineralization outside of the envelope of the envelope of the MRE that we did, that in the next program, we certainly are going to be able to add to those ounces at Phenolon. And to be honest with you, we've only drilled this down to about 1,000 meters. When you really look at the deposits in Abitibi, particularly these orogenic gold systems, they don't stop at 1,000 meters. So we certainly know that there is potential for us to extend that. We did one hole down to 1,500 meters, similar type of mineralization. I believe we got 4 meters of 17 grams a ton. But we decided we have enough lateral low-hanging fruit targets to follow up that there's no need for us to have that deep program in this year's program. On the left side, you can actually see the mineral resource estimate in a 1.5 gram per ton. We don't know what the size of the open pit would be, whether, how big and how deep. Our resource estimate came up with it with a 600-meter deep pit, but we certainly now see that there is opportunities for us to expand that. But on the left side, you can actually see that there is a very good underground portion of the deposit. These are 10 to 70 meter wide zones of roughly about 3 to 4 grams a ton, and very analogous to the Young-Davidson of Alamos gold. And we can certainly see that we're going to be able to not only have an underground portion, but certainly an open pit at Phenolon.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Marz. Just quite keen to get a few questions from the audience. Paul Rankin has asked a question. What is the inflationary cost situation looking like on your exploration plans and budgets this season?
I'm sorry, what was the cost?
Yeah, question from Paul Rankin. What is the inflationary cost situation looking like on your exploration plans and budgets this season?
Yeah, good question. And obviously, we typically do our budgets in the last couple of months of the prior year. So we did that in November, December of last year. We certainly were expecting the cost increases this year, and we've actually been experiencing those cost increases. We see roughly about a 10% cost increase from last year in terms of an overall exploration cost that we have. And those have been incorporated into the current budget of this year, which is about $70 million.
Bringing in Karr, what other questions do you have for Marz?
Oh yeah, Marz, a very great presentation and some good work going on. I'm just curious how do you perceive the time frame to begin production? At your best defined targets right now. How do you see that evolving going forward? Is it a 5-year span, 7? What do you perceive as the possibility?
That's a good question. We've been asking ourselves the same question. And that's exactly why we have this year's program. And I think what we identified is that we understand that there is currently a very good, robust underground bulk mineable deposit at Phenolon. What we really needed to do is demonstrate what kind of an infrastructure we need, not only for that underground portion, but also the open pit potential. That's the reason this year's program, especially because more than 60% of it is indicated. So there really isn't a whole lot of need for us to do conversion drilling in order to do economic studies, but more important to do an expansion drilling at Phenolon in particular. So this year's program will address definitely that question. We expect the updated mineral resource estimate to be sometime in Q1 of next year, and then subsequent to that, we'll do the economic studies. In terms of production, I mean, we all know depending on what type of infrastructure and what type of are you going to have a 60,000 ton a day mill or 6,000 ton a day mill, certainly changes the scenario and whether you have an underground or open pit. But if it was an underground, we're probably looking at, a 2 to 3 year permitting process in order to make sure that you have your milling facilities and infrastructure in place. But the good thing about the deposit is it has its optionality in terms of we already have underground infrastructure that we have gone down, and we certainly can start perhaps in the higher grade portions in the Gabbro and actually toll mill that in the initial stage and then work on the infrastructure with the larger project. And even if we do need to do a larger project, if you may say a detour size, we may be able to do that as a phased approach. At the $250 to $300 million market cap, we're very cognizant of the fact that if this was a detour size, it's going to be very difficult and challenging trying to, do a plus $1 billion infrastructure. So we are certainly looking at, in terms of an underground, perhaps maybe a smaller capital capex that the company itself can do, and then phase that into a larger project in the future.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Marz. We'll come back to you later on in the show. I'd now like to bring up Zacapa Resources. I'd like to ask Adam Melnik to go and share his slides. Just a brief intro while Adam's just getting his slides on the screen. He's Chief Executive Officer of Zacapa Resources, a mineral exploration company that holds 6 copper and gold projects in the world's best addresses for copper and gold exploration: Arizona, Colorado, Idaho, and Nevada. Take it away, Adam.
Oh, thank you very much for the floor, Andrew, and thank you for everyone joining today. We're really excited to give you an update on Zacapa Resources. We're a porphyry copper exploration company with 2 exciting epithermal gold exploration plays as well. And our fundamental thesis is to make new discoveries in the Southwest US and support an enablement of the new energy economy. I would encourage you to peruse our sorry, my slides are not changing screens here. Please peruse our website, zacaparesources.com. I will be making some forward-looking statements, so here's our disclaimer. There are 5 key reasons I believe Zacapa Resources presents a compelling investment opportunity. Number 1 is we have a very strong board management team, and I'm most proud of our technical team. We have extremely long-term supportive shareholders, some of which are locked up, including almost 50% of our shares being locked up for a year post-IPO. We have very well-positioned projects, which I'll be getting into, that are proximal to producing mines, past producing mines, and world-class development projects in the Southwest US. Most importantly, our strategy is to bifurcate our focus and budget across copper and gold in a very exciting year where both commodities are performing very well. And the 5th and final reason why I believe we present a compelling investment opportunity is that we're well funded to execute on what is a very robust exploration plan for this year. And we have a compelling path to value creation by pursuing best-in-class exploration at highly prospective projects in very active mining jurisdictions where there are majors operating, and especially more recently being very acquisitive. We recently IPO'd on the Toronto Stock Exchange and also completed our OTCQB listing and are also listed in Frankfurt. We've managed to achieve all this in the last effectively 90 days as a new listed company. Importantly, we have 50 million shares outstanding with 0 warrants. Our last financing was as a private company. We raised almost $10 million and received a very positive reception from the market when we IPO'd on January 26th. We've got fantastic liquidity, trading over 500,000 shares a day, and have some very supportive long-term shareholders, including Crescat Capital. We have 6 projects in the Southwest US across 4 states. These are our 4 key mining-friendly states that if you're in the copper and gold business, you would want to have key stronghold positions in. Arizona and Nevada are responsible for almost 80% of all copper and gold production domestically within the US. And we have a porphyry copper exploration play in the Garrington district in Nevada, an epithermal gold play called South Bullfrog in the heart of the Beatty district that I'll be touching on today, an epithermal gold play in Idaho that I'll be touching on today as well. And we have an active drill program underway at our Red Top porphyry copper project in Arizona, and a similarly compelling porphyry copper target called Pearl in Arizona, proximal to San Manuel Kalamazoo. And we have a 6th development stage project called Tamichi in Colorado with 600 million tons at 0.34% copper equivalent that we're working on advancing as well. Let's quickly touch on our 2 gold projects. So South Bullfrog is our project in the Beatty district, which has been a really hot area over the last year in particular. Most recently, Anglo Gold Ashanti completed its acquisition of Corvus Gold. They bought the remaining 80% interest in that company for $370 million US, and that acquisition closed in February. Importantly, Anglo Gold has a market cap of about $10 billion and production of 3 million ounces of gold a year. And they've announced their intention to build a central hub and spoke production facility at the North Bullfrog deposit, just 5 kilometers to the north of our property position. And they'll be spending upwards of $1 billion building this heap leach facility that will process material regionally from up to 6 deposits and have initial production within 3 years of 300,000 ounces a year. So this is really important as we're exploring right underneath the noses of Anglo Gold Ashanti, Augusta Gold, Core Mining, Kinross, and Waterton. So it's a really active district. There's about 10 million ounces shown on this screen here, of which 70% approximately is controlled by Anglo Gold at this point in time. About 80% of Zacapa's initial investors were primarily interested in seeing us advance this project. And I'm very happy to announce that we'll have an initial drill program here of about 5,000 meters that could be expanded, which we're commencing this quarter. And we have a clear path to value creation and a potential partner in Anglo Gold as we progress this project in the near term. Our second gold project in our property is called Miller Mountain in Idaho. Importantly here, we own about 7.5 kilometers along the Trans-Challis Fault Zone, which is an important mineralizing feature and structure in the Boise Basin, which has historical production of over 2.5 million ounces of gold. Importantly here, we're intending to drill this project starting in Q3 of this year to follow up on very interesting rock chip samples at almost 30 grams per ton, some historic drill results of including 7.3 meters at 21.5 grams gold with a silver kicker. We've done a lot of work as a private company to advance our understanding of this project. And we'll have a drill program here of about 2,000 meters starting at 2 historic mining areas, including the Specimen Mine and the Miller Mine, beginning in Q3. We have a very robust plan as a company. We're exploring all 5 of our exploration stage assets over the next 18 months. We've started with our Red Top project in the Superior Mining District in Arizona, proximal to the Resolution deposit that Rio Tinto and BHP are advancing. We're commencing our drill program at South Bullfrog in Q2, Miller Mountain in Q3, Dewdrop Moon and Pearl in the latter half of the year. So a really exciting time. I think it's as we touched on at the beginning of this call, how underinvested the exploration space is and how the majors have not made greenfields exploration a focus. And we've managed to wiggle our way into some very mature, very interesting geologically prospective districts that we can drill at year round, accessed by road in a very low cost manner. Our drill costs at the moment are about $275 a meter. So we can do a lot of work here in a very low cost way and create meaningful catalysts and news flow for investors year round, which is very exciting. So I would encourage you to get in touch with myself or a newly appointed Vice President of Investor Relations, Michelle Borromeo, who's also on this call today. Thank you very much for your time. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Excellent. I mean, just as a passing comment, certainly one thing that I've noticed at Mines and Money, if I look over the last year, in which jurisdiction have we seen the greatest increase in bookings and in interest, both in mining companies and investors alike? It is in like US-based mining projects, which kind of almost leads me into my opening kind of question is, your kind of mining projects are all in the US. How supportive have the jurisdictions been? And I guess the question behind the question is, sometimes there's a perception of people who are not in the US is that the Biden administration might be less open towards mining than, say, perhaps the Trump administration was.
Yeah, it's a really pertinent and timely question, Andrew. And I think at the exploration stage, it's interesting to focus on federal politics and proposals at the federal level. But we're much more focused as a company at the state and individual project level. So we have 2 projects on Forest Service ground, one of which we're drilling right now. And I think as long as you're transparent and proactive with these groups, you can get the work you need to do accomplished as an exploration company. But it's good to plan well in advance because you don't need any surprises from these groups. The majority of our projects are on BLM ground, which is quite straightforward to permit within 2 to 4 weeks and accomplish what we need to do as an exploration company. So in terms of longer term development perspectives, if we have a meaningful discovery here, we're realistic that it could take 7 to 10 years to drill off and pursue the engineering and feasibility and permitting work. And so we're mindful of making discoveries at the right time in what could be a very interesting and sustained cycle. Great question.
Great question from John Zakovich. With a lot of exploration projects in the company and considerably Red Top the priority, what is the company's current cash position?
Sure, yes, I'm happy to touch on that briefly. At the end of the year, December 31st, 2021, we had about $6 million in our treasury, including some capital that was locked up in reclamation bonds and the like, and we've been our burn rate is about $500,000 a month. Drilling at the Red Top property and progressing our other projects. So that's some pretty simple math for you to contemplate. I will note that the drill program we have underway at Red Top is actually our most expensive drilling we will be doing. As a junior in this space, making the decision to start a drill campaign as a private company and drill holes deeper than a kilometer is quite ambitious. So, importantly, the South Bullfrog and Miller Mountain projects that we're starting to drill this quarter will be much lower cost, and we'll be able to do a lot more meters much closer to surface than in comparison to Red Top. So would be good to keep that in mind if you're trying to project our burn rate moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Karl, what questions do you have for Adam?
Adam, great presentation. I'm just curious, just stepping back for a second, and many of us have been around the industry for a long time and have seen how mineral prices really direct the level and the type of activity that we see in the sector. And one of the questions that or challenges that was raised earlier on is all about resource adequacy and who does the work. Obviously the established large cap producers, typically have used, acquisition as a tool, perhaps, as a greater priority over just greenfield exploration. As you're making some very interesting progress and some very important targets. How do you see your ability to compete as an independent explorer? How do you sustain that over time and deliver the value that you need to advance your projects independently?
That's a great question, Karr. And I must say off the top here, you have great taste in vests. Thank you very much for your question. I think what's most important as a new leader in this industry, it's really important to start with the basics and get your corporate culture right. And that will attract the right people to your organization, from which you can build a really strong foundation to attract investors to meaningful projects. And that's really where I'm starting off with this company. And I think it is important in this space as well to partner early and partner often with large groups in particular, because their decision-making timeframes can be quite lengthy. So with my background in corporate development, corporate strategy with major mining companies in London, that's exactly what we're doing, is aligning ourselves very early and ensuring where we have an opportunity to crystallize value or add a strategic partner at an appropriate time, that we're well prepared to do that. We're not scrambling at a later date when you could have been more proactive. So does that add some color, Karr? I'm not sure what else I can say on that question directly.
No, thanks very much, Adam. It's a good response. I think with the focus on investor returns, I mean, who spends these discretionary monies in the most efficient manner? Is it through a larger caps acquisition strategy, or is it through a more junior company's ability to put dollars directly in the ground, such as you're doing?
I'm happy to speak to that as well, Karr. I mean, if you look at one of our regional competitors for people and drill rigs and an investor interest in the Southwest US, at Freeport, for example, Freeport released its entire greenfields exploration team during the pandemic, which is really short-sighted of them. And we've recently seen them rehire the vast majority of their team, but have them strictly focused on brownfields opportunities at their existing mines. So looking deeper, looking lateral at existing mines. And from my perspective, it seems like it's a little bit too little, too late. We've snuck in there under the radar over the last year and a half as a private company and staked and partnered on projects that perhaps we would have been in direct competition with Freeport for, but now own them inside of a junior and progressing them with great interest and support from capital markets. So that's all I would say is, we have the ability as a small organization to be a lot more nimble and a lot more make decisions a lot faster, and that allows us to keep swimming and stay competitive and involve some very interesting geologists in our work program.
Yeah, no, excellent. Thanks.
But thank you very much for that. I've just got a last question I'm going to ask for all three miners. Karl at the start of the show talked a lot about sustainability and how important that was. So question to all three of you is, what are your ESG credentials? I'll ask that firstly to Adam.
That's a fantastic question, Andrew. Thank you very much. We're just focusing on getting the basics right. We're realistic that we're not going through, trying to permit and develop a project at this point in time. But it's really important, even at the exploration stage, to set a precedent culturally for how we approach our activities. So, for example, our drill program in Idaho at Miller Mountain this year, we're actually pursuing a low impact drilling technology, actually drilling off of pads that are supported by wooden structures with man-portable rigs to limit the amount of disturbance that we have at those sites. And we were able to accelerate our permitting by applying for a drill permit, leveraging that technology. So just an example of what we could do at our stage and nature of the game, but setting a precedent for how we like to operate and respect the environment moving forward at such an early stage should bode well for our ability to strengthen our ESG credentials and scale them as we mature as an organization.
Greg from Sierra Madre Gold and Silver, what are your company's ESG credentials?
Since I've been working in Mexico since '93, the importance of being culturally attuned and part of the community has really been driven home. With Sierra Madre at our La Tigra project, when we first visited it, there was, I wouldn't even call it a pole barn. It was 4 poles with visqueen over the top of it, a blackboard and some benches. And I asked, what is that? And that was their school, except they didn't have a school teacher and hadn't for quite a while. So we immediately then, Alex and I decided that this was a situation that had to be remedied. So we got started there. We rehabbed an old schoolhouse, fixed it up. We hired a teacher in conjunction with the local municipal educational people. It's fully certified, and I think we've got 9 or 10 students enrolled now that had never gone to school before. At the same time, the teacher mentioned that these kids were coming to school hungry, so we instituted a lunch and breakfast program. Sanitation facilities for the local communities were also non-existent. So they don't have running water. So the best we could do is construct latrines at the houses. But I mean, it's an improvement over and above what it was. We're looking at what else we can do. Trying to get some, we've fixed up a freshwater holding tank for one of the communities. We don't talk about this stuff a lot, but it's just something I found over the years that you become part of the community that way. And so it's just something we've done from the beginning.
That's kind of like good to hear. And Marz from Wallbridge, I understand you've been doing some great work with indigenous nations there.
Yeah, it's all about partnership and relationships. And once you foster that kind of a culture within your organization, things go smooth. And you don't go to someone when you need them at the last minute. You start bringing them along so they understand what you're trying to do, rather than trying to show them the end result and ask them to sign the dotted line. And that's basically what we've been doing, and we'll continue to do so. In terms of governance, it's also important to do what you say And that's something that we've been focusing on, particularly important, especially as the project advances. You want to make sure that the integrity and the disclosures that you give are what you're trying to do, not what you want people to just hear. So.
Well, thank you very much for your answers to that sort of like question. And I really think today we had three sort of like great sort of presentations. So once again, a huge thanks to Greg Liller, Chief Operating Officer and Executive Chairman of Sierra Madre Gold and Silver, Marz, Chief Executive Officer and President of Wallbridge Mining, Adam Melnik, Chief Executive Officer of Jakarta Resources, and our investor guest, Karl Mccurdy, who's a partner at Rock Elm Capital, and of course our media partner, Resource Global Network. We do have some events coming up. Some of the miners you heard today will be at our event in May, taking place the 4th to 5th of May in London. So hope to go and sort of see you there. List of our events just coming up on the screen now. We also have some online events taking place as well. And last but no means least, we've got 2 in-person events at the end of the year. IMARC show in Melbourne, the 17th and 19th of October, and Mines and Money London on the 29th of November to the 1st of December. So any information, if you want to have any more information about any of those events, please don't hesitate to drop me a line. See you next time. Until then, stay safe and have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.